As AI becomes more and more popular, let's see how it fares creating a simple game with Unity 3D. What's up everyone? My name is John, and I'm an indie game developer. Let's see what ChatGPT can do. So let's start with typing in simple beginner Unity 3D game and see what it does.
Confirmed.
Okay, so let's review the results. Looks like that it's creating a breakout clone. The objective of the game is to break all the blocks on the screen using a ball and a paddle. And it even tells me good luck. Let's give this a thumbs up. Great game idea. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Onto the gameplay elements. Let's start with making a 2D paddle that moves horizontally with the screen. We can ask ChatGPT again.
Confirmed.
Okay, let's review. We have to make a new project. Create a game object named paddle, add a 2D box collider and rigid body, then create this script to add to it. And it tells us what to expect. Awesome. Let's go. So let's start with creating a new Unity 3D project. Then, create a 2D game object and call it paddle. And we need to add a 2D box collider and then a 2D rigid body to that new game object. Then create a new script and call it paddle controller and copy the code from ChatGPT. Paste it in. Now let's play the scene to test. Well, that won't do. Let's try changing the gravity of the paddle's rigid body to 0 instead. There we go. Moving on to the 2D bouncy ball, I defer to ChatGPT again.
Connecting.
Okay, we need to create a 2D game object named ball. Add a 2D circle collider and rigid body. Make sure the gravity is set to 0 and use auto mass is toggled on. Create a controller script. Again, copy the code and paste. And then also we want to create a wall and ceiling game objects. And then after that we can test everything. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, please like, and if you got any comments or questions, don't forget to post down below. Thanks for watching so far. I'm going to lower the paddle a bit, then create the 2D game object for the ball. Add 2D circle collider and rigid body. Turn gravity to 0 and use auto mass. Then create the script and copy paste like the paddle. Attach the new script to the ball game object. Then run the scene. The ball is floating in space. Let's try changing the speed to move down instead of up. Way too fast. Still too fast. There we go. Okay, maybe not. Got to work on the collision. So before we look at the collision, I want to make the wall and ceiling game objects. They are basically 2D boxes stretched out to fit the sides and top of the game screen with colliders on them. One thing to note is that the ball controller script needs a paddle tag. This should fix the collision interaction between the ball and the paddle. Apply the new paddle tag, and let's create the wall and ceiling game objects. Okay, with the walls and ceiling done, let's make sure the ball actually bounces off the paddle now that we are using a tag. Nice! And now it's rolling. And still rolling. One way to fix that is to add a tag to the walls and ceiling, and make sure the ball collision accounts for the new tag like with the paddle. For now, we want the x vector of the ball's position to stay the same, and the direction of the ball to always bounce in the opposite direction. So let's update the paddle's width, so there's more collision. I think the collision is a little too rigid. So I'm going to add randomness to the x position vector, so the ball can potentially bounce left or right. There we go. I think the game feels much better this way. But what would a block-breaking game be without blocks? I'm going to go to ChatGPT and see what is the third element that we need to make this game. And it looks like we have to make different types of blocks that must be destroyed. So I'm thinking, let's start with creating a grid of blocks. If I look up how to script to dynamically generate grid of 2D blocks in Unity, this is what I get. So what we need to do is copy this script and apply it to a new script in Unity3D. And then run it in the scene. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to create a grid game object and then attach the grid generator to it. And then we also need to make a grid tile prefab. So I made a new 2D game object called a grid tile, and to make it a prefab, I'm just going to drag it onto the assets folder. Here's my prefab, and then I'm going to drag it onto the grid generator variable right here. So now when I load my scene, we should have a grid. And there it is. One thing we want is we want to center it, and we want there to be spacing in between the grid. To add spacing in between the grid, we want to have an X and a Y offset, like this. And then we want to add it when it's looping through the different grid tiles. And then to center it, you want to make this grid game object 0, 0, 0 on the position. And then we can also remove this prefab. And now when I run the scene, there should be grid tiles in the center and spaced out. There we go. Now I think we should just have less rows appearing, and we need to make the ability to be able to destroy the grid tiles when the ball hits a tile. So let's use ChatGPT again. Look up how to destroy an object on 2D Collider, hit in Unity3D, and this is what it comes up with. So we could actually add this functionality to the ball controller script, like this. So when the ball hits an object that has this tag on it, it'll just remove it from the scene. So all we need to do is add a new tag called destroyable, add it to the grid tile prefab, and then there you go. So I'm going to change the prefab and add a tag called destroyable. Okay, we're going to give the destroyable tag to the grid tile. And when I hit play and run it, this ball should remove any tiles it hits. Okay, so that didn't work because the grid tile has to have a collider on it. Now let's run it again and see if the collision happens. And there we go, it hits it and then it removes it. One thing we want though is when it hits the grid tile, we don't want to reduce the speed. We want it to keep moving through or bouncing in a different direction. So I want the ball to just move backwards when it hits it. So I'm just going to copy this code. And so when it hits a grid tile, it's going to move backwards and retain its original speed. So if I play the scene now, it should work as we want. There you go. And then one thing I want to do is adjust the amount of rows that this has. And now we'll move our tile, hit the ball, and the ball will bounce off the grid tiles. So one of the last things I want to do is deal with player lives. If the ball goes into the floor level, a player loses a life. the ball reappears up at the top. Otherwise, if the player, destroys all objects in the game, they win. So we're going to do a simple strip where if the ball goes beyond this level, which is like -6 or something, we're going to relaunch the ball, and the player is going to lose a life point up there. What I'm doing is I'm storing the starting position of the ball, and when it goes off screen, it resets the position back to the starting position, and the player loses a life once we add that functionality. So the end result would be something like this. And then it just keeps going. So it would reset the position every time. Okay, so let's ask ChatGPT about a lose condition for the game.
Connecting.
Okay, so let's copy paste this into a player lives script in the project. And then we just need to attach this to a game object in the scene, and we need to make a text game object so we can show the player how many lives they have left. So let's make a player lives game object. Attach the player lives script. And then I already went ahead and made a player lives text game object, which is right here, and we're going to associate that onto this variable right here. So what we need to do is when the ball reaches the bottom of the screen, we want to call this take damage function right here. And we want to be able to access the script from the ball controller. So I'm going to copy this over here, make a public variable so we can assign it. And then here, when the ball is reset, this is where we're going to call that function, take damage. And we'll just do. So now we want to attach this player lives game object to the ball for reference. And when the ball reaches the bottom here, it should remove a number. There you go, 2. All right, so now we just need a lose condition. When it reaches 0, the game resets. Okay, so we want to be able to reload the current scene in Unity, and I just asked ChatGPT, and we're just going to go ahead and use this functionality right here and put it in our player live script here. And we're missing this right here. All right, just reset. So now we just want to be able to keep track of how many grid tiles are left. And when grid tiles equal 0, we're going to reset the game. And one way to do that is we can check the children of this grid game object. So when these grid tiles are generated, they become a child of this grid object right here. So an easy way to keep track of that is to check the child count, and when we reach 0, which means when the grid tiles are all gone, we're going to reload our scene, and this code is copied directly from the player live script. Okay, we got one more left. There we go, and it just reset it because the game was over. If you're looking for other tutorials, definitely check out the Unity3d tutorial playlist on my YouTube channel. If you want to follow the development of my indie game, head on over to johnbednas.com and look up The Lost Orcs. I also have 2 playlists regarding the indie game. One is a gameplay playlist on the YouTube channel, and then another one is the devlog series itself. Just a quick disclaimer, some of the links in the description below are affiliate links, which means I receive a small commission from it if you decide to buy anything. However, it's no additional cost to you. Thanks for watching, and again for your support. So as you can see, ChatGPT is a pretty powerful tool. And when you use it as a supplement tool, or even if you are a new user or programmer, if you're just trying to figure out Unity, it's a great search tool, and it will really help you figure things out. If you found this video helpful, please thumbs up on the video, put a comment down below if you have any questions, and thanks again for watching. Have a good one.